There's a hidden danger to retiring at age 65 that could jeopardise your golden years. My aim today is to wake you up to this, so you don't fall into the trap that I've seen too many other people fall into. I'm going to highlight some alarming stats to you about retiring at this age, but I'll also share some actionable steps you can take right now to reduce your chances of being one of these statistics. So what is this hidden risk of retiring at age 65? Well, recent data published by the Office for National Statistics revealed some worrying trends about our healthy life expectancy. Life expectancy is how long you're expected to live in total, whereas healthy life expectancy is how long you're likely to live in good health, and it's much lower. If you've got ambitions to travel and do lots of other things when you stop working, you're going to need your health for that. And the shocking thing is that, on average, our healthy life expectancy from birth in England is just 61.5 years old. That has decreased from 63 just 10 years ago. So we're expected to be in good health for less of our lives. It won't take you long to work out, therefore, if you're not planning on retiring until 65, there's potentially a serious problem here. Now, I know a few people will be itching to type a comment at this point saying, actually, if I'm 60 now and in good health, my healthy life expectancy isn't 61. And they'd be right, of course. Just in case you're in the middle of writing a resignation letter to your boss, the figures from birth are skewed by the people who, very sadly, have poor health much earlier in life. A bit like if you averaged the exam grades in a class of students. A few low grades will bring the overall score down. But if you only focused on the top 25% of the class, their average would be higher. So if you're 60 now and in good nick, you could expect to have another 12 to 13 healthy years on average. But still, if you retired at 65 or waited until your state pension age at 67, you might only have 5 to 7 years of good retirement on average. Not very much. Or to put it another way, a year might not seem like a long time, but every year that you delay after 65 could be costing you 15 to 20% of your remaining healthy time. And that assumes, of course, that you're average. You could get more years, but you could get less. A client of mine who I'd worked with for a long time became terminally ill with cancer in the year he was due to retire. Unfortunately, that year coincided with the COVID outbreak, so he wasn't even able to make the most of the time he did have. It was very sad, and it's the last thing I'd want to happen to anyone watching today. But are people collectively waking up to this and actually retiring earlier than they used to? Well, further stats from the ONS give us more data on this, and the figures are interesting. If you imagine a room of 100 people in 2011, statistically, 68 of them would have retired. Fast forward to 2021, and only 41 of them would be. In 1 decade, we've gone from having over 2/3 of our population retired at 65 to less than half. The main reason for this will be the movement of the state pension age. It was 65 in 2011, whereas it's currently 66, increasing to 67. It's like being in a race where the finishing line keeps being moved further back while you're still running. That's the problem with pegging your retirement to the state pension age. But what about those who choose to retire earlier, independent of the state pension? Surely those figures are improving. Well, in 2011, just 4.3% of 55-year-olds had retired. But today, that number is even lower, at 3.7%. And while the numbers have stayed steady for older ages, surprisingly, 10% of people in their mid-70s are still working. Now, that might be because some of these people love working, which is great. But for the majority, it's probably because they have to. What this does is paint a very worrying picture. The figures are all going in the wrong directions, and we're spending less time in retirement in good health. So think about your own race to retirement. Are you in control of where the finishing line is? Let me ask you this question. If you knew how much longer you had left, would you continue to spend your remaining days in the way you are now? Or would you spend them differently? Would you try to change what you knew? Well, what I'm going to tell you now is the key to how you avoid being a statistic. When I dug into the data on healthy life expectancy, one of the most telling things was the link between your muscles and bones and poor health in general. Not only were these problems the most common conditions mentioned in the Health England survey, they also led to the highest number of people suffering from poor health as a result, even above heart and circulatory problems. In other words, you were more likely to be in poor health overall if you had a musculoskeletal problem than if you had a heart condition. You can basically draw a straight line from these problems to medical issues, which tells us one thing. If we want to extend our healthy lives, we need to look after our muscles and bones better. The way that we do that is by lifting some weights.
1002.
A brisk walk or a jog probably isn't going to cut it.
Jogging. I believe it's jogging or yogging. It might be a soft J.
As well as our bodies, though, we need to keep our minds sharp and focused. Think beyond the idea that just stopping work is the goal. You don't want to be scratching your head for things to do when you finish, whether it's travel or whether it's new hobbies, whether it's voluntary work. Don't just retire, have something to retire to. Health is more important than wealth, so focusing on that to improve the quality of your time has to be top priority. But wealth is still important. Without money, your retirement will be pretty rubbish. So what are the key steps you need to take to look after yourself financially? Well, creating a financial plan doesn't have to be rocket science. You're probably familiar with the famous tale of the space pen. As the story goes, NASA in the 1960s spent millions of dollars developing a pen that could write in zero gravity. The Russians, meanwhile, just used a pencil. Now, I think that it's been proven over the years that that's actually a myth, but it does beautifully illustrate the power of simplicity. And this is rule number one. When it comes to your finances, simplicity is your best friend. Clear, simple goals are easier to achieve and track. Ask yourself, how much income do you want each year? When do you want to start receiving it? If you define these targets, it'll be easier to measure your progress towards them. And it's not just your goals that you should keep simple. If I was to ask you which of these three things contributes the most to your overall investment performance, what would you say? How your money is split between assets, the specific stocks that you buy, or your timing of when you buy them? If you said A, you'd be correct. Asset allocation is the most important factor. But as a proportion of your overall growth, how much do you think it contributes compared to the other factors? 50, 60% of it? It's actually about 90%. And that's why using low-cost investment funds that simply spread your money across all of the world's companies and bonds is often far more efficient than paying somebody to try and pick stocks and beat the market. If the market itself drives 90% of your return anyway, just own that. If simplicity is rule number one, rule number two is you need to spend less than you earn. If you don't, you won't be able to build up any money. And rule number three is you have to increase what you're paying in every year. £200 a month might have been a good contribution 30 years ago, but it's not as good today because it doesn't buy you as much as it did then. Now, a big question you might be asking is, have I got enough? Because this is the question people probably ask me more than any other. And when they do, I sometimes tell them the story of the Mexican fisherman. So one day, an American businessman on holiday in Mexico goes on a fishing trip with a local fisherman. And he asks him how he spends his days. He says, well, I usually get up quite late, fish for a while, and I catch what I need to provide for my family. Then I go back home, have a nice long lunch with my wife, and I play with my kids. Then in the evenings I go into town, I drink, and I play guitar with my friends. And the American says, well, I've got a better idea. What you should do is fish for longer and catch more than you need to invest the surplus into a bigger boat. And why would I do that? Well, then you can catch even more fish and get a fleet of boats with all your friends working for you. So why would I do that? Well, then you'd be selling enough fish to incorporate a company in America where you could open a canning factory and control the entire production and distribution process. And why would I do that? Well, then you could sell the company and retire with all the money you make. And then you could get up when you want, fish for a while, have lunch with your family and drink with your friends in the evening. So the moral is, we've often got everything we need already to be happy. We're just not very good at realising it. If you're someone who's worked hard to put money aside, but you constantly think you need more, or maybe you don't, that's the point when you might want some support from a financial planner. Or if you prefer, you could get the tools to create really comprehensive financial projections for yourself. Some of these tools are completely free, and I've linked a video in the description below which goes into more detail on them. So take a moment to assess your own situation, then explore these tools to see how they can help you. Whatever your current starting point though, whether you've built a pot already or barely started, There's a simple step-by-step process you can follow to improve your chances of retiring early and increasing the amount of good active time you have to spend. And that's all explained in this video you can see on screen now. If you can't see it, it'll be linked in the description below. I'll see you there.